I recall the first time I really knew what defeat was. Not the physical kind, I'd known that previously, but the emotional kind that dwells in your head long after your body is healed. I was 17, facing a man twice my size, my master observing quietly from the corner of the room. Everyone thought I would lose, and for a brief moment, just a brief moment, so did I. That moment took everything from me. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Not because he was better, faster, or stronger, but because in that single instant of doubt, I had already defeated myself. My body was just catching up to what my mind had already decided. The world perceives victory and defeat as things that happen outside, as measurements on a scoreboard, figures in a ledger. But I'm here to tell you, they are nothing more than states of mind. They first exist in your mind, before they even begin to exist in the real world. Take a minute just now, close your eyes, listen to the beat of your own heart. Ask yourself, how many wars have you lost before you've even started combat? How many dreams have perished, not for being impossible, but because you chose they were? Pay attention, because what I'm about to tell you isn't in any training manual. You can't learn it in school. It is the distilled wisdom of a lifetime of combat, not merely against opponents, but against the greatest enemy of all, the self-imposed limitations of my own mind. I make you this guarantee: by the end of our time together, you will never perceive defeat the same. You will know it not as something that occurs to you, but as something to which you agree or refuse to agree. And in knowing it, you have a power the majority of people will never even find out exists. Each morning when I awaken, before my feet touch the floor, I decide what type of day it's going to be. Not what type of day I would like it to be, but what type of day it will be. This may be a subtle difference, but it holds the whole key of self-mastery. Most individuals start each day as a person dipping his feet in the river and allowing the stream to determine which way he's going. They respond to situation. They act in response to barrier. They go along with challenges. They never control the flow. They never dictate the stream. I worked for years learning the tactics of fighting, the degree of every punch, the balance of every kick, the timing of every counterattack. But none of these skills are useful if your head has already lost. All the practice in the world is useless if you've already resigned in your mind to losing before the first move is even taken. Let me tell you something I learned in thousands of hours of training that changed not only my fighting, but my entire way of life. I call it the 3 minds principle. And once you know it, you'll never face defeat. Way again. The first mind is the reactive mind. This is where most live their whole life. It perceives obstacles as barriers. It interprets challenge as threat. It feels change as disruption. The reactive mind is constantly in defense, always reacting, always surviving. I recall teaching a student with all the physical skills in the world, strength, speed, coordination, and he lost every sparring bout. One especially frustrating session, I pulled him up and said, "What are you thinking right now?" Notice the issue? His whole thought process was centered on responding. He had put himself in the position of being the object, not the subject, of combat. He had made himself the target of action, not the source. He was already in his head, trailing, not leading. The second mind is the responsive mind. This is a step above reactivity. The responsive mind does not merely react. It responds intentionally. It has plans, methods, and strategies. It does not view obstacles as merely barriers, but rather as challenges to be overcome. This mind does not merely survive, it attempts to win. Most successful individuals function from the responsive mind. They set goals. They build skills. They design plans to get what they want. The responsive mind is victory-oriented, and that's definitely better than being survival-oriented. But there's a limitation here too. The responsive mind is still fundamentally linked to external circumstances. It's still working in the paradigm of stimulus and response. It's more advanced than the reactive mind, but it's still not the source of real power. I worked out of the responsive mind for many years, continually refining my methods, innovating new approaches, designing novel training methods. I was extremely skilled, but I had yet to achieve the state of full mastery that I knew existed. The creative mind doesn't respond or react. It creates. It doesn't look at what is, it looks at what might be. It doesn't function within boundaries, it redesigns the boundaries. The creative mind doesn't play the game more skillfully, it transforms the game completely. This is what I was talking about when I said, be water, my friend. Water does not try to break through obstacles, it just goes around them. Water does not struggle against barriers, it changes them patiently. Water does not plan, it just acts naturally in every situation. The creative mind doesn't wonder, how do I win this battle? It wonders, what am I creating out of this experience? It doesn't wonder, how do I not lose? It wonders, how do I let my most authentic self be present in this moment? When I finally grasped this principle, everything shifted. I no longer went into battle with a plan for winning. I went in with a vow to achieve complete self-expression, and paradoxically, that's when I became absolutely undefeatable. Not because I won every match, but because I moved beyond the very idea of defeat. Now you may be thinking, this sounds philosophical, but how does it relate to my everyday struggles? How does it assist me when I've been fired, when my company is collapsing, when my relationship is breaking up? One evening, when I was alone in my vacant studio after all the people had gone home, the silence was overwhelming. The pressure of possible failure rested upon me as heavily as a weight. At that instant, I faced a decision. I could acquiesce to the story of failure that events appeared to be dictating, or I could write a new story altogether. This transition from responding to creating altered everything. I came to understand that I wasn't merely struggling to maintain a martial arts school in operation. I was developing a new paradigm of fighting. I wasn't merely attempting to hold on to students. I was communicating a philosophy that could change lives. The following day, I redesigned my strategy altogether. Rather than defending conventional methods, I started questioning them openly. Rather than attempting to fit into conventional paradigms, I designed something new. I ceased attempting to win within the current game and designed a new game altogether. The outcome wasn't merely survival, but revolution. Jeet Kune Do wasn't created out of victory. It was created out of what appeared to be defeat. But because I would not concede to the frame of mind of defeat, I turned a crisis into creation. This is the power that you have at your fingertips right now. Whatever problem you're struggling with, whatever barrier appears to be too great, you can choose to move from reactive mind to creative mind. You can choose to ask, not how do I get past this, but what am I creating through this? Then the morning definition ritual. Every morning before launching into the day, define, on your terms, what winning means to you that day, not what constitutes success in our culture, not what others assume you should want, but what constitutes true triumph in accordance with your innermost values. As you define the victory on your own terms, you take the power back for yourself to define if you are defeated. I will start every day imagining not only successful moves, but actually the sensation of being my authentic self through movement. I set victory not as winning a game, but as being totally genuine in my expression. This definition liberated me from other people's opinions and rooted my sense of success in things I could influence. Second, the pattern interruption practice. Pay attention during your day as you fall into reactive thinking. You'll know it by the thoughts that crop up. This always happens to me. I can't believe this obstacle arrived. Why am I so unlucky? When you become aware of these thoughts, stop them at once with a creative question. What can I bring forth from this situation? How can I use this to share my most authentic self? I recall sparring against a much bigger opponent who just kept pushing me into corners using his weight advantage. At first, I reacted with frustration, a reactive state. I caught myself and switched at once. How can I express fluidity against solid force? This imaginative question prompted me to create techniques that turned the opponent's weight against him, techniques later to become the basis of my entire system. Third, the redefinition discipline. Every evening, look back over your experiences of the day, not in the context of win or lose, but in terms of creation and expression. Look at your own life and ask yourself, when did I create most deeply today? When did I express my deepest true nature? With practice, it begins to reprogram your mind to cherish creation more than competition, expression more than winning. Once I had shot particularly challenging scenes, I would not judge them as good or bad according to traditional criteria. Rather, I would ask myself, did I get truth across in that performance? Did I make something real? That reframing turned the most difficult days into chances for improvement instead of defeats. Fourth, the creative visualization technique. While traditional visualization emphasizes seeing yourself succeeding at specific things, creative visualization is about envisioning yourself being who you are in all situations. As you approach any difficult situation, take a few seconds to visualize not only what you will do, but also who you will be in that moment. Prior to significant demonstrations, I wouldn't see ideal techniques. I would see being perfectly present, perfectly authentic, perfectly expressive, no matter what techniques arose. This liberated me from fear of error and let natural excellence occur without limitation. These 4 practices aren't methods, they are paths to a radically new relationship with the idea of defeat. They shift power from outside conditions to inside decisions. They shift you from the place of being defeated to the place of determining what defeat even is. But I have to caution you, this is not a straightforward path. Our minds have been conditioned by years, decades of traditional thinking. Reactive and responsive thinking has a strong pull. The tendency to define defeat in external terms is deeply seated. I recall the struggle I had when initially trying to redefine victory and defeat on my own terms. Society's definitions are compelling. Other individuals' expectations are convincing. The scoreboard appears so objective, so tangible. Society can tell you you're defeated when you lose the job, lose the relationship, lose the competition. But are you defeated? Or are you just passing through a moment of transition, a door to creation, a moment for expression? The solution lies not in what occurs to you, but in which mind you decide to use. The reactive mind that makes you a victim of life, the responsive mind that makes you a participant in the game, or the creative mind that makes you the writer of your experience. In 1971, I was injured with a serious back injury that had me immobilized for several months. I was really told that I would never again practice martial arts. By every standard definition, this was defeat, a crushing blow to someone whose identity was constructed around physical strength and martial excellence. In the first few weeks, I acted from the reactive mind. I felt victimized by fate. I wondered why this had been done to me. I bemoaned everything I had lost. This psychological state converted physical pain into suffering and transformed an episodic situation into an ontological crisis. As I started to recover, I moved into the responsive mind. I created recovery strategies. I learned treatments. I designed rehabilitation exercises. I battled against the limitation with all my might. This was more than reactivity, but it was still draining. Each day was a struggle against reality instead of an acceptance of it. This transformation altered everything. I came to understand that I wasn't merely healing from an injury. I was gaining a greater insight into the interplay between mind and body. I wasn't merely rehabilitating muscles, I was learning patience. I wasn't merely resisting limitation, I was learning to communicate even within limitations. I started to use the immobility of my body as a chance to mobilize my mind. I studied philosophy, I wrote prolifically, I perfected the theoretical basis of my martial art, I intensified my practice of meditation. I solidified bonds with those who were caring for me. Before my body was healed, my method for martial arts had changed. What started out as appearing to be defeat had now formed the basis for my highest level of innovations. The injury hadn't beat me, it had shown me new aspects of my ability for expression. When you pose this question honestly, you engage the creative mind. You change from being the recipient of experience to being the subject. You change from being vanquished to being the maker of meaning. You become artist instead of victim. This is not empty affirmation or positive thinking. This is not suppression of emotion or denial of reality. This is the deep realization that although sometimes you may not control what happens to you, you always control what mind you have to encounter what happens. The world will forever have challenges. Others will always do what you have not done. Resources will forever be in short supply. Errors will forever be made. But defeat? Defeat is not mandatory. Defeat is a mind state that you either reject or accept. I've taught thousands of students over the years, and I've observed something amazing. 2 individuals can suffer from precisely the same setback, yet one comes out more powerful while the other is left weakened. The difference is never how significant the setback is. The difference is always in the mind that confronts the setback. Some individuals naturally want to know, why did this happen to me? Others naturally want to know, what can I create from this? The former question results in victimhood. The latter results in authorship. Former accepts defeat. The latter overcomes it altogether. I want you to do something now. Think of a contemporary challenge in your life, something that tastes like defeat or possible defeat. It could be an occupational setback, an interpersonal rejection, a financial plight, or an anatomical limitation. Got it? Good. Now, pay attention to your default thinking about this experience. Are you reacting with questions like, why is this happening? Or how can I stop this? Or are you asking responsive questions like, how do I fix this? Or what tactics will work? These are normal, but they leave you functioning in the usual mode of defeat. Instead, attempt to ask innovative questions. What am I possibly learning through this that I couldn't learn otherwise? How is this situation possibly showing me strengths I didn't realize I possessed? What new opportunities might this seeming setback be opening up that weren't apparent before? How can this challenge assist me in expressing parts of myself that have been latent? Notice the difference? The first set of questions embraces the fact of defeat and attempts to flee from it. The second set overcomes the very idea of defeat by turning away from avoidance and toward creation, from protection and toward expression. But I need to be honest with you. This journey isn't about being unbeatable in the traditional way. It's not about success on every single attempt by objective standards. It's about being better than that of the oppression of objective standards completely. It's about knowing the real triumph never was, ever, about something outside you, but about what lies within. The best warriors I've encountered weren't those who never lost a battle. They were those who never lost themselves. The most successful individuals I've encountered weren't those who never failed. They were those who never gave up their creative authority to situations. This is the call before you right now, to be not someone who never falls, but someone who is never defeated by a fall. Not someone who stays away from every loss, but someone who wins creation from each loss. Not someone who is free from every limitation, but someone who gets to express one's real essence even amidst limitation. The journey starts with a decision regarding which mind you will use when confronting the challenges of life. Will you respond, thinking mostly about what has occurred to you? Will you react, thinking mostly about how to get past what has occurred? Or will you create, thinking mostly about what you're creating and bringing into existence through what has occurred? Whatever it is, make this creation your central focus. Have it be the benchmark to which you hold your day's success. When unexpected setbacks do happen, as they always will, ask not how does this impact my plans, but how can I embody my commitment to creating X through this setback? I've acted on this commitment through my life's darkest hours. In the face of cultural resistance in Hollywood, I committed to forging authenticity over acceptance. In the face of resistance to my pedagogical approaches, I committed to forging innovation over validation. In the face of physical disability, I committed to forging adaptability over overcoming. These promises didn't preclude challenges, but they reframed my experience of challenges from possible defeat into creative possibility. They moved my focus from what was occurring to me to what I was creating out of what was occurring. This same energy is yours today. Whatever difficulty you're encountering, whatever problem looks impossible, you can choose to commit to creation instead of being obsessed with prevention. You can choose to work on expression instead of protection. And in doing so, learn what I learned after decades of training, struggling, and surviving. Defeat is a choice. It's present only because you give it life. It holds power only when you yield your power. Be water, my friend. Move around the obstacles instead of pushing against them. Adapt to the constraints instead of resisting them. Demonstrate your nature in all situations instead of showing it only in ideal circumstances. You will have learned what the greatest fighters, painters, and inventors throughout history already knew. Genuine victory is not about vanquishing outside adversaries. It is about being yourself, no matter what outside circumstances. Remember, water does not fear the rock. It merely flows around it, slowly changing it through constant expression of its nature. Be like water in the presence of your obstacles. and find the power that lies in refusing to accept defeat as anything other than a temporary state of mind, a state you can change through the creative power that is your birthright.